What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr War Games, and as highly requested, here is my first place updated Darkworld Danger profile. Now I took this to a Rogue Locals the other day, and basically ended up getting first place. My matchups were Tier Element Trap Control, which was a big what, because they dropped a tier card, and I was like, what is going on? And next thing I know, they set 4. Passed and started flipping like paleos. I was like, yo. And then my second matchup was against Blackwings, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. Then there was a branded matchup, and then finally was a sword style matchup, which I ended up drawing. I just wasn't paying attention to time, and probably should have just gone a little bit more aggressive. With all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe for more Darkworld content. You guys seem to be enjoying it so much that I'm bringing you as much as I possibly can. So, in this profile, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to lay out each section as you can see in front of you. I'll explain why we've got the cards and the ratios they are, and then what it means is you can pause the video and then check out the cards themselves and either match it or change it up. So, of course, we've got free Rainbow, free Grapha, free Genta, and free Snow. So you want to max out on these cards as much as you possibly can for the pure fact that they are your searchers, your boss monsters, and pretty much your consistency cogs of the entire deck. Now, I've seen people considering playing 2 Grapha. Now, I would only cut Grapha down to 2 if I was playing an unpure version or an undanger version. And what I mean by that is you still want Grapha because he is the only way you get into your fusion monster. You want to see him in your opening hand means that Snow can then search out the spell card as freely as possible. Not to mention, if you discard him via an effect of either a danger or off of the discard effect of Ascension, you will then get an additional pop, which is very, very important, because that additional pop, if you do it during your opponent's turn, like if you hold a Grapha in your hand and you do it during your opponent's turn, you will actually end up getting a pop as well as everything else you need. Now, keep in mind as well, if you end up discarding another card, they'll get their effect as well. And then the whole idea of the fusion monster is the fact that it turns any normal spell, normal trap, or monster effect that your opponent activates into or the turn player discards a card, or the Darkworld player discards cards, meaning it'll trigger the secondary effects. And I've pretty much already gone over those, but they're so good and important. Genta is insane. The fact that he's not a once per turn to search out gates is really good. I still wouldn't max out on gates for the pure fact that you've got 5 copies of gate in your deck, and Genta will only get the most benefit if you have another Darkworld. Like, yes, you can still discard a Fiend if you want to, but you want to be able to make sure you're getting maximum value. And as you can see, these are the only Darkworld monsters we are playing, so you need to be opening up Genta plus any of these to get max value. And the best value you can get is Genta plus Rainbow or Snow, and they will give you other consistency pieces. The Brow and the Silver at 2s. I'm not too set on Brow at the moment. Like, it's really cool as a draw 1 or a draw 2, but we're not really playing hand traps in this deck because you want to focus on just going absolute ham. And what this deck can do incredibly well is just constantly keep playing through stuff. Like, literally, in my tier matchup, the guy was like, I can't believe you had so much to play. And he ended up going through the track card of things like the Rising Heights. So he went through the Rising Heights, he went through a Dynamiscus, I went through like an Imperm and an Ash. It was mental, and still was able to build a board. In a sword style matchup, I had to face against 2 Imperms, a Blackout, and a Cheng Ying Banish, and I was like, yo, and I still kept going. Like, the resource of this deck is absolutely mental, and it's really good. But that's kind of where the Brow draw 2. Yes, it's kind of cool, but the ideal card you want in your hand is either the Neko Main King or the Silver, and that will get you the most value, because you're either ripping 2 from your opponent's hand back to the bottom of the deck, suffocating their resources, or you're going to be going into Neko Main King and ending the turn. On top of that as well, you can play like the other Darkworld higher levels like Gold, so 1 silver, 1 gold, but he is more of an aggressor, so I would honestly, you probably don't want to be dropping the gold against that, because it means you need to wait. You save your negation or the adaption off of your Dragon Overlord, because if you drop it, if you've got gold, you really want to be popping 2 cards. You need to wait for them to commit 2 cards to the board, whereas with silver, you can do it as early as you possibly want. So that's why I've gone 2-2 and then freeze of everything else. That's pretty standard on the Darkworlds. I'll now shuffle this up, or like change it up, and show you the dangers. Okay, so now for the dangers. As you can see, we're playing like a very small package of like 9 cards. Arguably, just to kind of like even everything out, you kind of want to put it up to 10. But when you look at everything you've got, I don't want to be maxing out on any of these at freeze for the pure fact that you want to make sure that you see a range of dangers, because the last thing you want to do is reveal a Nessie with another Nessie in the hand, because then you're just increasing your chances of hitting said Nessie, and then going from there. Regardless, I think this ratio kind of works out nicely because I don't commit too heavily on the go second cards. Yes, it can be a little bit risky if I do end up going second, but keep in mind with going second, you've got Gref that plays, you've also got Bigfoot, you've got Thunderbird, and that can start picking a board apart nice and easily, and really does make your opponent think about when they activate card effects. Snake and Jackalope are all at 1. Chupacabra, again, is one that you definitely don't want at more than 1 in my opinion. For the pure fact that you need to be getting a danger to the graveyard, and the idea behind this is because you're going to get a level 8 to the graveyard, and that's where it can help you get into your coach trainer plays. So that's kind of the way with that one. With dangers and the Dark Worlds, the idea is you need to get a nice balance. Ideally what you want to be looking for is you want, like, the best way is 4 Dark Worlds and 1 danger, and then hit a Dark World and off of the danger, draw a danger. Obviously the second best would be 2 dangers, 3 Dark Worlds, and then you draw into a Dark World. Like, you want to minimize, where possible, hitting any of the dangers, because let's be honest, you hit the Snake, yeah, you get a body on the board, it's not really going to take you far. You hit the Jackalope, you can get another level 8 on board. You hit the Chupacabra, you can get another level 8 from the graveyard. You hit a Nessie, you search out another piece, and you get to play again. So they're all of your, like, your best ones to keep you playing. Whereas Bigfoot, going first, nothing if he gets hit. Thunderbird, nothing if he gets hit. Ogopogo, just Foolish Burials, and that's only going to be good to set up Chupacabra plays. So you've got to be very, very careful in the way you're playing this. And I know a lot of people have bad luck as well. So if you've got bad luck, dangers are one of the worst to play, because every time you reveal this, if they snipe it and hit it, unless it's Nessie, you're not gaining any advantage from it, and it really does suck. So there are alternatives. If you don't want to play this 9-card engine, you change it into cards that allow you to control your discards more. And what I mean by that is these 9 cards would become 3 Dark World dealings, 3 drag down to the graves if you want to, and then you would bump up the, I'm going to show this now actually, rather than later, you'd bump up the Salamander Catalyzer to 3. I've cut it down to 2 last night because I wanted to fit in another card. But Catalyzer is another way that you can control how you discard, which is really, really important if your luck's not going with you. You've got to be careful with Drag Down to the Grave and Dark World Dealings, because obviously they will trigger your opponent's card effects, which is why I also don't play Mothman. Arguably, I could play Mothman in this deck, and it is something that I'm considering as well. There is also another consideration that I'm making with this deck, is if I want to play a rank 7, and that will be explained with the next card that I'm going to show you. So let's show you that one. Okay, so the next card that is going to be top of the list is Fenrir. Now, this card was incredibly good. The reason I hadn't shown it in my previous profiles was the pure fact that it's not a card that everyone has access to. It's going up in price. But the reason it serves this deck so well is for the fact that it can search out a second copy of itself. So you get a free monster to the board and then search out another copy of itself. It's also very good that if you draw it off of a danger later game, it's either free discard fodder, or if you go into Saruja, it's a card that Saruja can summon, and then you activate the effect to search out another copy of himself. So again, you deck Finn, you replace your hand, and you've got a monster on the board that basically informs as another form of interruption. On top of that as well, every time I dropped this yesterday and special summoned it, my opponent would always eat up a hand trap. My opponent would always use Imperm on it, it would always use like a Veiler on it, it would always stop it searching another copy of itself. So it was very important to do that. And yeah, it worked out really, really well. The reason I consider it a rank 7 is the amount of times yesterday where I ended up having a Fenrir negated on the board and then get on Nessie. I was like, oh, I really want a rank 7. Sadly, there isn't really a great rank 7, in my opinion, that would be utilised to the max potential. Now, obviously, I could play Shangri-La, I could play Darkest Diablos, I could play cards like that, but not Darkest Diablos, sorry, Diabolos, but there wasn't really anything else. Like, you could use Big Eye going second, you could use Red Flare going first, but nothing else really provided the generacy, so they were better off being used as link material, or you leave Fenrir on the board so that during the next turn he becomes live again. Zephyros is insane, like such a good card. The fact that the only time it's a bad card is if you can't get it to the blooming graveyard. Now, if you activate a danger and reveal this, hit this, it's just as good as hitting a danger, because what you do is you'll get the draw off of the Nessie or any of the danger, use the effect, bounce it back to the hand, reveal it again, the danger you've just returned, and you go again. So it basically gives you a 10th copy of a danger, which is really, really cool. The Tall Guide Sangan combo, I still really like it. Purely because if you hit the Neko Main King, you'll do, like, it pretty much is game for your opponent. The issue is, I saw this card in my opening hand way too many times. On the flip side, though, this is the easiest 5-card side-out engine ever. So when I know I'm going second, it's like, boom, those are out. And I'll show you the side deck at the end of the video as well. But literally, it's like, cool, I'm going first, we'll swap those out, we'll go for these. Or, cool, I'm going second, we'll swap those out, we'll go for those. So it's a very easy swap out. It's just one of them ones that if you face a tier element matchup, you know you've got a card in your main deck that will end the turn. If you're going first, again, normal summon Tour Guide, your opponent might attempt to use a hand trap on it or stop it or anything like that. And you're like, okay, cool, fine, whatever. And then you continue to make your plays. So it is entirely up to your own personal preference. I know a lot of people don't even play this and they just rely on hard drawing the Neko Main King. Completely fine. I just quite like the idea of getting to it. If anything, you could cut this down, but then the more and more you cut the Tour Guide down, the more and more you increase the chances that you're just going to open or evenly open this, this, or this, and that's kind of not what you want. So that's it for the remainder of the monsters. I'm now going to show you the spells, and we'll move on to the extra, and then the side deck. I should probably mention before we get into the spells that if you don't have Fenris, it's not the end of the world. You can change them out for anything you want. This is like a 45 card deck, so you just cut it down to 42 to increase your consistency and kind of work it from there. It's just one of them cherry on the top. If you have it, play it. If you don't worry about it. Onto the spells. So as you can see, a very small spell lineup, and for the pure fact of that is you want to make sure that you are opening up a mixture of monsters as possible. So you already saw that nearly a quarter of the deck is Dangers, just over a quarter of the deck is Darkworld, and then a small portion of the deck is either free extenders or normal summons because you don't normal summon at all. And if you really wanted to, you could spice this up and you could actually swap the entire Neko Main King engine, any of your ideal normal summon plays, and go for an invoked engine, because you would replace the 5-card engine of the Tour Guide and everything for 3 Alistairs, and then you would go for like 2 Meltdowns, a Terraforming, a set rotation if you really wanted to, and then 2 Invocations. And the best thing on that is an Alistair in hand can also buff this guy as well, which is really cool. Regardless, we're playing 2 Gates, 2 Ascension, 1 Archives, 2 Allure, 2 Trading. So all of it, within theory, is pretty much draw power. So draw power, draw power, draw power, draw power, and then just recycle power. But the fact that this can let you trigger a danger Darkworld is insane. So the reason I got 2 of this, as explained with the Genters, I don't feel you need 3. This card does nothing on its own. You need to have a Fiend in the graveyard. The maximum value is with a Genter, and the minimum value is just 2 Darkworlds or a Fiend. Technically 2 Fiends, but you still want to be able to discard a Darkworld in order to get their additional effect. So it's very important that it goes down that way. Ascension at 2, I've not had an issue with it since I've cut it to 2. It's one of them cards that you want to see it, but you don't want to see it too frequently. Like, you have Snow that gets to it, so you've got 5 copies of it technically. You've got all of this draw power that can help you get to it as well, plus the dangers. Yeah, I feel 2 I've been absolutely fine with. Archive, I never saw it, I never really used it, but I probably should have done a little bit more yesterday. That would have helped out massively. Really cool card. You just got to keep in mind that you have to have a card in the hand to discard before you can draw the 2 cards. But by doing so, of course, you can trigger a danger. Keep saying danger. A Darkworld as well. Then, of course, you've got Trading. This will only trigger the dangers, but this is really good for going second, because if you activate Trading with a Bigfoot, you guarantee you can pop a card, or at least bait out a back row. The same with Thunderbird. You can do it with Greffa, but it won't trigger its effect, and you can also do it with Rhymbure or Rainbow, and again, still not get the effect. Allure as well works really nicely because you play a heck of a lot of darks. It can be a little bit risky, but the best target is if you banish Genter off of this, you can summon Genter back, which is great. But again, it's just draw power. That's pretty much what you're looking for. If you wanted to, because like I said, it's a 45 card deck, you cut these out completely. But I still quite like these because it'll let you, like, there was a play that I did yesterday, and I went through a Gate into a Trade-In into an Allure and just drew and drew and drew, and like, didn't really stack up my hand, but started setting up my graveyard and everything. Not to mention that by putting a Greffa or a Rainbow in the graveyard, you can bounce it back and just gain even more hand resource. It's mental. Okay, so now let's move on to the extra deck. So there is your extra deck. As you can see, my version is probably a little bit more Link heavy than anything else. But you've got 2 of the Grapha Dragon Overlord. Again, I think 2 is more than enough. It's rare that you go into 2, but 2 is just as an additional backup. It works really nicely. Coach King Giant Trainer, I never got to it. Sadly, it has very high cost. You need to get 3 level 8s. You have to go out of your way to get to it. However, it is a really, really nice card to get to either go into a Scoldred or follow off of the back of Scoldred, considering that he can get you a level 8 from the hand. I put Zombie Stein in instead of Bagooska, but this should probably very easily be Bagooska, just to kind of play against the barrier statue matchups or anything else like that. And what I mean in that term is you still kind of you need to negate the barrier statue, go into a rank 4 play and kind of work from there. But bar something like a Mothman, my rank 4s wasn't again specific. I had to go out my way to make an Abyss Dweller, but it was one of the ones where I was like, well, Graveyard is still a thing, so it's one of the most important ones. So I had an Aggressor and a Defender and an Extender, so I just, like you've seen in most of my previous profiles, I kind of try to balance everything out. Muckracker was kind of like a last resort, because when you activate Muckracker, unless you've already pre-built your board, the only thing you can follow up a Muckracker on is you can only go into the Grapha Dragon, because it locks you into Fiends, but she will allow you to bring back a Darkworld, and she will allow you to trigger a Darkworld. Really important. IP Masquerena used it probably the most of the Link 2s. The Dark Charmer, again, pretty straightforward on that one. Unicorn, the bounce actually comes out really, really nicely. Like in my game 2 or 3 against the Ishizu, the tier player, when IP Unicorn bounced, I activated the quick play spell, discarding the Grapha from hand to pop, and it was just trying to pick off the back row before he had a chance to activate it. Scoldred Extender, Zelantis, I'm not sure on. I might actually cut it. It was just one of those aggressive options where I would turn Scoldred or a used up Appaloosa into it. It would obviously give me a water attribute as well. Reset the board state a little bit, and then kind of move it from there. But I never really got to use it. I never got to use its battle effect. I never really got to use the banish effect. So yeah, I'm not entirely set on this in here. Access code is another questionable one as well. And the reason I say it's questionable is I didn't realise this, and I probably should have, until I played later game. I was like, wait, dark. It's like the only way I get a second pop off of access code is for any one of these to already be in the graveyard. Or I've turned Scoldred into Zelantis, extended my board further, and then linked Zelantis away into access code to give him 4k, and then be able to pop additional cards. So either I need to change my lower levels, or I need to change the access code out. I probably would be looking at playing something like a Ding. Maybe even an Avramax as well. It's just something to kind of consider. Another one that should really be in here that I can't believe I haven't put in here is like the BLS Link 3. Like, that's a no-brainer. Like, you make that quite easily. I just feel that a lot of people can out the towers now. They're kind of prepared for it. Appaloosa is pretty straightforward. Underworld of Goddess was really good, actually. I quite like this because it's one of them ones where my opponent just goes, yeah, you're putting all your monsters in defense. I'm not really worried. I'm not going to interact with them. And then once you get 4 on the board, they don't even consider you've got this. And you just go, Link Summon, and I'm going to use that card. And they go, what? Ah, crap. I should have interacted earlier. So it does give you a very nice interaction. Not to mention as well, you can do it with IP during your opponent's turn. Beautiful. It's not the hardest to deal with, but again, it can be very, very cool. And even funnier is if you use this to go into an access code, 5k boost. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the extra deck. Straightforward. Now let's get on to the side deck and I'll explain how that worked. Couple of questions, couple of like risky moments. So we'll start off and we'll go side to side. So Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood, again, it's just a time win con. Like, sadly so, Danger's Darkworlds take so long, especially when you're revealing a danger. You pass your opponent a dice, they roll the dice, they hit it or they don't hit it, and they got to re-roll again, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. So it can be a long game. So when you get to game 3, or the all-important game 3, you do need to rock something like this. So that you do have the ability to do it. Whether they are going first, whether they're going second, it gives you a win con. It actually, I had it dropped against me, I was able to stop going and was able to kind of gain back that life points or deal with that life point differentiation. But it won me a game against a tier control matchup for the pure fact that I activated it when they reveal Shiren, and there's no way they can stop it, there's no way they can change it, so it guarantees you're going to get the life point gain. And then from that point on, it's just how deep do they go, or do they pass on a weaker board. Lightning Storms and Duster. So never saw Duster, saw Lightning Storm once. I see why, but I am highly considering taking the Lightning Storms out for something like Cosmics or MSTs. You could arguably play something like a Twin Twister in this deck, but your hand advantage is really, really important. And the way I saw it was, if I was going second, I would put these 7 cards in, guaranteed, if it was just game 2. And these are all just board breaker cards. You can then evenly, and then whatever they have left, unless they leave the monster in defense, you can Lightning Storm it off. But I'm still in the questionable zone of Lightning Storm. I'm not entirely happy with it, but you need back row hate in there, and that's the one I went with. Evenly matched, like, I put this in all of my side decks. I think it's such a good card. Like, very few people are fully prepared for it, and when they do prepare for it, that's when you need to think ahead and not put it in. But it's just so good. If you draw it and you've got no cards, no commitment on the board, it's a guaranteed a 1-for-1 trade. Yes, you do lose your battle phase, which is a little bit risky, but you've got Coach King to do. Actually, that's a good question. Let me just double check Coach King. Oh, you can't conduct your battle phase. Okay, fine. Ignore that. You can't Coach King and evenly in the same turn. That's interesting. Regardless, I would still play evenly. Like, it is a complete and utter board wipe, board clear, and go from there. Skill Drain put in a lot of work. So in the Sword Soul matchup, I flipped the Skill Drain and it was just Battle of the Boss Monsters. And that's where the Field Spell comes into play. And you play so many high level, high attack monsters. It's crazy. Like Bigfoot, 3k, Thunderbird, 28. Greffa with the Field Spell, 3k. Ryan Bure, Rainbow with the Field Spell, 3k, 300. So it's like, you've just got boss monsters. The Fusion Monster, 3500. It goes and goes and goes, and your opponent's worrying about getting rid of Skill Drain, so that when they get rid of it, you go, okay, cool, Fuse, big boss monster, now I can deal with anything. The Virus, never saw it. I did put it in a couple of times, but again, my matchups weren't the greatest. I definitely didn't want to activate this against a tier matchup. Woof. I wasn't sure on the Blackwing matchup, but I probably should have. Ultimately, I knew he was going to make me go second game too, so I didn't bother. And then in the Sword Soul matchup, I was like, I could hit Vishuda, I could hit some of the Tenyis, and I could hit Long One, so I didn't get burnt for turn or for game. But again, never saw it, never used it. This is a card you would adapt depending on your local environment. If there's Isuzu tiers all over the place, yeah, not nice. It is very, very tricky. Other cards I would like to consider that I'm going to be looking at adapting is Beginning of the End. Super Poly, I obviously considered that as well because we play a lot of dangers, and Super Poly during the battle phase can be very, very helpful. Yes, you could go into Greffa, Fusion Dragon if you wanted to, but it's more so just being able to try and like break a board apart and pull it apart and work it from there. But that's just an option. Another one that I would highly consider that I'm surprised I didn't even put in, I think I just didn't have them with me, is something like a Lava Golem or a Rasphere mode, because you can do stuff without even conducting your normal summon. So Lava Golem will probably be better. You just need to make sure you deal with it and get it off the board, because if you don't get it off the board, he will be a strong boss monster, and I'm pretty sure he's a fiend if I remember rightly, so he will also get boosted by the field spell, which is something you don't want to be doing. Anyway, that is it for the profile and the side deck and the extra deck, and I hope I've gone in as much depth and detail as I possibly can. I am constantly adapting this deck, I am constantly editing this deck, I am having huge amounts of fun with this deck, and this is definitely something that I needed to get me back into the format, because like the format was kind of like, ugh, this is boring. But now I'm having a huge amount of fun, and I'm also having a lot of fun with Draco Slayers, so I highly advise guys to pick that up as well, because they are really, really cheap, and work it from there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. If you are enjoying this Darkworld content, I will continue to keep doing it if you are continuing to smash that like button, and then I will bring you more and more and more. But as absolutely always, guys, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.